What's up, Bobby? How you doing?
Good. Sorry for the delay.
That's all good, man. No
No
worries.
worries.
What are you up to?
Just waking up still.
Yeah, I think, but
Same.
we can say the same, both of us.
I hear you.
Anything new with you? Anything you got going on?
I'm just opening my gym. So it's called AKA San Antonio. So we're just getting it off the ground. We haven't even officially opened or had a grand opening yet. But we're running like some classes. I was teaching at a UFC gym, running the BJJ and MMA program here in San Antonio, and unfortunately, like the owners, COVID shut us down, and the owners were telling us that we're gonna reopen. Like I went to get my check. We're looking to reopen this day, but they were already They had been working on selling the gym to a competing jiu-jitsu school, like for months before COVID even hit. So they were gonna pull the rug out from under us either way. So some of the guys followed me to my garage. We were training in a garage. I mean, you could probably see it on Instagram, but I'm not a social media guy. I just do it because you kind of have to do it in these times. Anyway, some guys followed me there, and guys kept coming, and eventually, you can't fit like 30 dudes in a 2-car garage and roll. So
Yeah.
kind of forced me to open a place. I was a little reluctant because, you never know, there's going to be the next COVID. It's going to shut everything down. But pulled the trigger. We just opened the place. It's small. It's nothing big. It's like 2,200 square feet. Maybe, I don't know, 1,400 square feet of mat space, and then, changing areas and stuff like that. And it's still being built. Like the floors are down, the mats are down. Still got to get the wall mats up, and I want to have like a striking area along the perimeter of one section of the mats, and all that's it's just a process because we are having classes, and I'm not Mr. Business. I've taught for like 30 years, but I always had a partner to run the business side, and now it's kind of like a one-man show, and so it's a little bit more. Like I like teaching. I don't like having to worry about accounts payable and accounts receivable and all those kinds of things. So it's a little annoying.
Understandable.
Yeah, I understand.
Are you in contact with Mike Swick? Doesn't he have an AKA gym? And
he has a whole big. His is more like a resort, man. It's like, and actually for a little while he was in charge of the AKA brand, the international. He was like the president of international marketing, but I don't think that's true anymore for reasons I shouldn't get into. But it's unfortunate. He's got some things going on in his personal life. He's got some health things he's dealing with, and I've always liked Mike, and I hope that he wins this battle.
For sure,
Yeah.
for sure. Did he post something? Is he cancer free? I thought he posted that the other day.
Yeah, he posted that in the last couple of weeks, but I lost my sister to cancer like 6 years ago, and she was going into remission and being cancer free, and then it was coming back, and so I haven't. For me, it's a delicate subject, and I don't want to like invade life or anything like that. So I haven't asked a lot of questions like what form of cancer it is. There are different forms of cancer that are more aggressive. It might be more true for women. And they'll go into remission, but it's kind of like if you get this kind of cancer, it's over because you'll go to chemo, it'll go away, it'll come back harder, it'll go away, it'll come back harder, and eventually it'll beat you. And it's just harrowing battle, you know what I mean? And that's why, I mean, my family's been through it, and so I really am, and
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry to hear about your loss.
Yeah,
thank you.
same here.
Appreciate
Sorry
that.
to hear about that.
We were gonna get into the Ultimate Fighter stuff. Is that fine with you?
Yeah, you can talk about it, whatever you guys want. Give me 1 second.
Okay.
All right.
I'm good to go.
All right. So you were on Team Liddell, is that correct? With Tough
Yes,
One.
sir.
All right. That was the first I remember. I don't even know how. I might have been like 8, 7 years old. I remember me and
I
my
was
dad.
8.
That was the first
was
time I
Yeah,
saw
don't
you.
rub it in. You guys don't have to rub it in.
Oh, no.
But
Fight
no,
TV days, man.
I
Right.
remember my dad. We would always, like, every time there was a new episode, we'd be watching it every time you'd come on. So that was the first time I saw you. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, it was.
Same here.
Thank you. It was a long time ago. You know, it's funny how, not funny. It's cool. You know how it's kind of carried through. Like, I never characterized myself as being famous, but I guess a lot of the cast members will always kind of be connected to the sport in some way, and that's, you know, hasn't made me any money, but you know, it's kind of cool. You know, so I'm it's good memories. You know what I mean? Good stories to tell.
For sure. How scripted was it? Was any of that scripted or not?
No,
Or it was just
no. There was no. Yeah, I don't know about. I can't speak to the seasons that came after us. That's why all of us, we don't call it season one. We just call it the Ultimate Fighter, because it was the one, and it still stands head and shoulders above any season that has come after it. And for the scripting stuff, I mean, I watched any of the previous seasons, and then I kind of moved to just watching a little of the drama and more of the fights, so I could see some of the up and comers. And it seemed like some of the seasons to come after us were scripted. Like, they were always looking for a Chris Lieben, a Bobby Southworth, a Josh Koscheck, you know, the guys, you know. So but in the beginning, man, they just put us in that house, and you know, it's super funny because when we got there, we're athletes, right? It's like they didn't think of us as athletes, for one. So when we got there, the only food in the house, the only things that you could eat or drink in the house was Snickers ice cream bars, hot pockets, and all the alcohol that you could drink. That was what they had stocked the house with. So it was like there wasn't any, and there's a lot of stuff you don't see in there where, like, it was drama because guys wanted to eat healthy, and so they clipped it out. But there was a scene where I went to Dana and was talking to him about, you know, this was just what I said to you. This is what they have for us, and he understood. And he's like, "What do you guys need?" And so I started to eat chicken, fish, these vegetables, fruits, and you know, and he was just writing it down, taking a list. By the time we got back from the gym, there was all of the counters of that kitchen were just full with like all the food that we wanted. You know what I mean? So there were steaks, chicken, fish, good vegetables, good fruits, a juicer. They got us a juicer. It was awesome. Blender, protein. And then they started asking the individual guys, like, you know, what kind of protein do you want, and bringing stuff that the guys individually wanted. So it was nice. You know, it started out rough, honestly. And looking back, I mean, and I was a dick about it. I wasn't nice to the crew members and stuff like that. But they didn't know anything about us. They all thought like we were just dudes who sat on a bar stool, and if somebody burped, we would get up and beat the crap out of them. You know what I mean? That's really what I thought. And then as the show developed, you know, I think, except for I think that maybe Diego and Chris and myself might have been the only guys on Tough that didn't have college degrees. I mean, I went to college and I played college sports, but at like sometime during the third year, my girlfriend got pregnant. We had a baby, and so it's like I had to get a job and start working, and that kind of what really led me down the path to discovering jiu-jitsu and moving into MMA. But yeah, it wasn't very scripted. I do think that they did some things. Like I told you, I was kind of a dick or a jerk to the crew, the filming crew. But I think they put the filming crew and the production managers to do things to us, to like push buttons, because they would tell us. I mean, dude, I'm at this point, I was the oldest guy. I was 35, right? All the guys on that season, they were retired from fighting by the time I was on that show. And so I have all these kids. These kids are fresh out of college, you know, 21. You know, they're closer to my kids' age than they are to mine. And so they're, you know, ordering us around and not respectfully telling us to be here at 1, and then we're coming in and a whole other person's coming in yelling at us, "What are you guys doing here? You're not supposed to be here till 2. Go back in the house, go do this." And like they were constantly doing things like that to us, and it started to wear on me. And so that kind of like contributed to my dynamic with the film crew. So I wasn't very liked on that show by the production crew. So
you were just over it at a certain point.
Right.
pretty much, yeah. Yeah, pretty much. And a lot of guys got to that point, you know, um, at one point or another during filming. So
They probably figured it out after y'all season, like, all right, maybe we shouldn't take a 35-year-old man and just tell him where he should be at this time and what he
no,
should eat
but
at this time.
they had it figured out before because in the contract there was a clause that says that if we like put a hand on like any of them, that they could kick us off the show and sue us and all these legal things. Not even like beat them up, but like even if we just like push them around or threw them to the floor or something like that, and that they could sue us and do all kinds of legal things to us. So I think they kind of had it figured out that there was going to be friction. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
still made for good television. You know, when you look back and you think about it, it's funny, and I can see how it's different. You know, it's so subjective when you're living it, and when you look back and you can take a step outside of it and look back, there are so many things. I mean, it's like life in general, right? You look back, your parents told you all this stuff, and you thought your dad was mean, and you look back when you're older, and you oh, that's and you have your own kids, like oh, that's why he was telling me not to do this, or my mom was telling me not to do that. You know what I mean? It's just
Yeah.
so subjective.
Well, people also think, I think people also get when it's like TV like that, they're like, oh man, if a camera was on me, like I wouldn't act a certain way. But when it's on you 24 hours, it's hard to think that it's there. Like a lot of time, like I don't know if you've seen that like Last Chance You on Netflix, or like some of these 19, 20-year-old kids are acting this way. I just wouldn't act like that on the camera. It's like when it's around like that and you're in certain tough situations, like you're not going to think about that camera after 3 weeks or 5 days. Like I guess that's same with you guys in the house training,
100
cutting.
100%. So like, you know, I mean, I've still to this day, I still get hate about things that happen on that show, and people trying to get on this like moral high horse and talk down to me, not realizing that if somebody had a camera on you and your life 24 hours a day, you would definitely show all the fact. You would be a jerk, you would be a saint, you would be a savior, you would be a hero, you would be all these things, you know, the things that movies try to build up. You know how they try to play on your emotions. Everybody plays every part in the drama of life, and most people think that they're above that, but there's no camera there to record you. And so it's easy to look back and paint your own picture of yourself when there's no camera to do that. And you know, it took me a while to understand that. You know, it's like even at 35, you know, I was kind of immature. So at 35, got all these people telling you these things, and you're not realizing that in this situation. And they also think in this situation, they would do the same things. And they also think that it's the greatest thing in life to go on that show. And it is. There are aspects of it that are great. You get the best food, you get the best training, the best facilities, and all you have to do, and Dana even was saying this in that speech, that all you have to do is train, right? But you don't realize that when you're sequestered for the show, like we were in the gym or we were in the house. It wasn't like I can go down to 7-Eleven and get a Slurpee if I want to. You couldn't do anything. They took away all of the books, all of the Diego had a Bible. They took his Bible. So all they wanted us to do was be in each other's face. There was no TV, there was no radio, there was nothing. And then you were in the walls of the home or you were in the walls of the gym. And like you said, at a certain point, it's like it becomes like a prison. You know, you don't take for granted people. I really believe that people don't take for granted the freedoms that we have living our regular lives. And when some of those things are taken away from you, like I said, like just going to the store to get something, just walking down the street to get, like, we couldn't even go outside the gates of the complex to jog around the block. You know what I mean? We had to jog around inside the gates of that. I don't know. It wasn't an estate or anything like that, but it was all fenced off. It was gated around, and it was just the one building. But if we wanted to do some cardio, and it wasn't like the other seasons, they didn't bring in like the other seasons. They get to the house, there's airdyne bikes, there's rowing machines. Like I saw in the last season, like they almost have like a full gym at the house, they have a sauna at the house. It wasn't like that because our season was the learning season where they had to actually find out what the sport was all about. You know what I mean? It was crazy.
Yeah.
I
Are
also
you?
don't think like the new seasons now, like the coaches are, they're going out off and going to the fights, or they're taking private jets, and they're like, I'll be back. Like I think DC season, he was like, I got to go do something at home, but I'll be back. So Kane's going to take over until I'm back. Like there, it was more old school. Like Liddell and Couture probably
Oh
just
no,
there, just
no,
training
no,
every day.
no,
It
no,
was same
no,
way.
no. I mean, sport wasn't at the point where guys were making private jet money. Okay.
Right.
But there were times where like I was running practice because Chuck, I mean, we were in Vegas, so Chuck was being, he's kind of in the MMA world, I think Chuck is kind of known as Mr. Vegas. So we were in Vegas and he was doing the Vegas thing. And so there were some mornings where we had like 8 o'clock practice where he probably didn't get out of bed till 1 o'clock because he went to bed at 7. You know what I'm saying? So
Okay.
there, you know what I mean? So it was, and I don't know, Randy was different than Chuck. Randy, he was more like preacher's son MMA star, and Chuck was more like the rock star MMA star. They were kind of the polar opposites. But there are videos out there. You guys haven't seen that meme where Randy's like dancing in the club. It was going around. You guys were probably 10 then. It was going
Yeah,
around
yeah.
the
I don't. I
internet
don't.
for a while.
I'll have to check that out.
But that
Yeah.
was actually filmed during. He was at the club during the show, and that was filmed actually while we were filming The Ultimate Fighter. So yeah, they were going out and doing their thing. It just they weren't doing it to the extent that you could do it now. I mean, Jesus, man. I mean, I wish I was 10 years younger and I could have stayed a few more years in the sport,
Mhm.
possibly made some real money and, done some of the things that the self promotions and all of the stuff that these guys do on social media. Cause I'm really anti tech, as you kind of figured out while we were trying to get this going. I'm not like super techy, and doing social media, like my Facebook page was set up by my sister. My Instagram page was set up by a couple of my students a couple years ago. So like I barely was on IG. Actually, my sister started, it was MySpace. You guys probably don't even remember MySpace.
I have one.
Oh, yeah. We used to have
Yeah.
MySpace.
So
AOL
my,
Instant Messenger and MySpace.
yeah. So she set up my MySpace. And then when Facebook came out, she set up my Facebook profile. And so, because that wasn't my thing, and I never, honestly, while we were filming the show, I was asking Dana if I could go back to Pride because, Pride was the big thing at the time, because I didn't see that vision. You know what I mean? I didn't see his vision that sport was going to do what it did. It's amazing to look back and see it. I mean, it sucks for us, right? It didn't benefit me financially, really, and they constantly talk about how the season one did this and did that. And, it would be nice to get a check since, in the first year you went from negative 40 million to plus like 400 million. But, it is what it is. I never would have expected that. I don't expect anything like that. And through the years, Dana has treated me like extremely well. So like I get some perks for being on season one, like 8 tickets front, on the floor, front row of the octagon to go to UFCs and stuff that are in my area. So it's pretty cool, A lot of, like I said, a lot of good memories.
You and Chris leaving? You guys good now?
Yeah. We were just together at Stephen Bonner's memorial. And I mean, when you look back, and because of that situation being as public as it was and will be probably for another 50 years, as long people are going to remember that, I'm sure there's some sting there.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we've both, experienced some personal growth, him probably more than me. And he'll never forget. He can forgive me. Like we were like hugging it out. I was telling him I was glad to see him, happy for his new gym. He's, oh, you know about that? And I was like, yeah, man, I follow you in the training center on Instagram. And he, like, his eyebrows went up, like he couldn't believe it. Like, I never hated Chris.
Yeah.
I like Chris, okay? Because me and Mike Zwick, we were talking about him earlier. There was always that kind of friendly competitiveness at the gym. And Zwick, he was always like, I'm better than you. And I was like, no, I'm better. Just
Yeah.
that's what happens when you're in those kind of things, in that situation. Like, I'll segue. Like I tell most guys, they ask me about becoming a fighter, and I tell them that if you could not survive the verbal battles that go on in the gym at AKA, even to this day, because I was back there last summer, that's the first step even to getting past the training, the level of training. If you can't survive the verbal battles, you'll never make it. You'll never be a fighter. You might do a couple bucket list Ami fights or something like that, But if you can't get through the training room, you won't cut it. You won't make it because it's brutal in there. I mean, it's all friendly, but it's super it's just how alpha dudes, I guess, do it. It's like you see it in the movies, but we are always like capping on each other, bagging on each other. And guys, I've seen it break dudes. I've seen guys actually leave the gym because and then everybody's looking around like, what the fuck is he so pissed off about? What are you slugging around?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just,
Yeah.
it's crazy. So, but I segued and I forgot where we were at. We are talking about Chris, right?
Yeah, I just asked, are you guys friends now? That's what
I wouldn't, we're not friends, but it's like I said, we hugged it out and I wished him the best. And, like I was saying, I told him I followed him and he's doing well.
Yeah, I've seen he had his own gym, right? Where's that at?
It's called the Training Center and it's in San Diego.
Okay.
And it looks like it's doing well. And he's also, some stuff I didn't know, he's actually working as a referee for the California State Athletic Commission. So there's a chance you might see him reffing in some UFCs and some Bellators. In fact, that's Stephan Bonner's memorial we were talking about. He had to fly in on real short, like the morning of, I think, or take a red eye the night before because he had 2 fighters fighting on a show. I think 1 amateur and 1 professional, and he was actually reffing that show. He was doing double duty. He was coaching and cornering his fighters, and he was actually refereeing some of the bouts on the show. So he's doing well, man. Refereeing something I've been looking into getting into, and he was telling me a little bit about it. It's a process, but it's something I think I'm going to start going through.
Well, that's something I think as fight fans we would like to see prior fighters as refs. To kind of clean up some of the mess that you see in some of the fights.
Yeah.
So you guys have a better understanding of what's going on in the octagon, I think, than most. So
I agree with you. I mean, I think we've seen some in the past, and most recently, probably in the past 4 to 6 UFCs, there's been some pretty questionable things going on. And I think the judges, they're getting better and more experienced, but there's a difference between understanding fights from being cage side and watching and taking courses than there is to having been in the cage and fighting and going through training the different disciplines and understanding boxing, understanding Muay Thai, understanding jiu-jitsu, understanding wrestling, that judges who haven't done the individual sports or competed in MMA, they'll never attain that level of understanding. It just
I'll call David, and like you said, it was probably the past like 4 events, and I would call him and be like, dude, we will talk for like 30 minutes of why we don't think he won, but it is what it is.
But us, like we've been fans, I guess now 17, 18 years, but I would never think to use my knowledge to be a judge because like you said, I just have no inside knowledge of what it's like to be in a fight, like what it's like to truly get hit in a referee fight with 30,000 people. Like I don't know that feeling, so I don't know how I would be able to judge it. But I've been a fan of UFC for 18 years, but that doesn't mean I know how to judge a score just based off of the criteria that they give us. And I guess that's the same with the judges now,
But that happens. In fact, this is another conversation I was just having with somebody talking about not just judges, but even fans in general, right? It doesn't matter when you guys go to watch the game, whether it's football, baseball, basketball, or you're watching the fights, MMA, boxing, Muay Thai, right? You always have some guy or multiple guys that, oh, why did he do that? They're questioning the decision that Tom Brady made while 280-pound linebackers are charging him down in the back. Oh, you should have thrown to that guy. That guy was open. It's like, dude, did you play football? Did you even play football? And a lot of the times the answer is no. And if the answer is yes, I played football, the guy was a 3rd string player who never got on the field on the shittiest team in his conference, on the shittiest team in his city, on the shittiest team in his state. You know what I'm saying? But he's an expert at watching football. Yeah. So but that's what makes sports so popular, right? It's like some people, they have the love of the game and maybe they didn't have the talent. I mean, I wasn't the most talented fighter and I have critiques about fights going on, but like you said, and I fought at a pretty high level, but I never fought at Madison Square Garden on the main events, like you know what I mean, like Conor McGregor versus Dustin Poirier I fought in front of 30,000 people in the Saitama suit, in Japan. But it's just, I wasn't the main event. I didn't have $20 million of my pay-per-view money on the line. You know what I'm saying? It's just, there are so many different levels to it. But that connects us all. What connects us all is the love of the sport, right? And that's what's really cool.
And
How
you were
was that in Japan? Because we had Jeremy Horn on a while back, and he was just saying how the promotions in different countries, like how he enjoyed them, like China, Japan. So how was that for you personally?
I mean, at the time, right? It was awesome because at that time, Japan was the pinnacle, right? Everybody wanted to get to Pride. You know, they wanted to fight in the UFC, but Pride was where guys were getting paid. Pride was where you were fighting in front of the mega crowds. Like if you were fighting in the Superdome, you could be fighting in front of 70,000 people. Dude, that's insane. You know what I'm saying? I
It's
mean, and you don't
insane.
even, you really don't even understand. Like when they brought me to walk me out. I didn't walk out this door and start going down the thing. We got in a cart and they drove us in a golf cart around the curve of the building to where I would be walking out. It was crazy. It was, and the fans are different in Japan. And you have to remember too that at this time, Shuto had started in Japan. So when I fought in Pride, I think it was 2000 or 2001. Shuto had already been going for maybe 8 years, and martial arts was a big part of Japanese culture. It was just different, you know, like the way the fans watch and like when the guy is setting the submission, you see it now. You see it now with the explosion of MMA, and when you're watching like the fights and the guy starts going for a kimura, where the people are going, and you hear the volume, waiting for the tap, or the guy's sinking the choke, and it's crescendoing, like you can hear the energy of the crowd. And then, when the guy gets out, like the attackers, fans like, and then the fans of the guy who's about to get tapped, yeah, and everybody's all pumped, right? That's
Yeah.
how Japan was back then, at the time where in America, it was like, get off him, you LGBTQ spectrum person, stop wrestling like that spectrum person. You know what I'm saying? It's like,
Yeah.
you guys, back then you would say that word, right? But now it's
Right.
not politically correct. So, I mean, you would hear that from the littlest promotions of Gladiator Challenge and King of the Cage to the biggest promotions in the UFC. I mean, I was at UFC events back then where guys would be yelling that, get off him, stand up and fight like a man. And it's just a different vibe in Japan, you know. So, but now modern MMA, you see that type of vibe with the fans, and the fans understand more of the martial arts aspect of it, right? And back then, America was a striking country. It was all
Right.
about boxing, right? All about kickboxing. I mean, if it wasn't for the explosion of MMA and what the UFC has done, you wouldn't be seeing these grappling tournaments like Who's Number One and like, the Polarises and the submission only tournaments that Gordon Ryan and the top grapplers are fighting in, right? That wouldn't be happening if MMA never rose,
Sure.
because
Right.
in the explosion of jiu-jitsu as a sport and as a martial art itself, that is directly due. I mean, there's a scientist could probably get there, put the information on, and put in information of how many jiu-jitsu schools there were in America just before the first season of The Ultimate Fighter, right? And then you could see as the UFC starts to grow, the sport of jiu-jitsu starts to grow, and all these things have sprung from that. And that's an awesome thing,
Yeah.
Like I was trying to tell this dude when we were on the show, we watched, and this was in 2000, we were filming in 2000, the end of 2004. We watched UFC 37 and a half. Okay. So UFC 1 was in 1993. By 2004, almost 11, closer to 12 years later, right? 11 years, yeah, almost 12 years later, the UFC had only done 36 and a half shows. Where were they in 2010? You know what I mean? 5 years later, they were like at UFC 175 or something like that. And that doesn't count UFC on Fox, the Ultimate Fight Nights on Spike, and all these other shows that the UFC, you know what I'm saying? And so it's like,
Yeah.
the growth of the sport was so phenomenal, and that's why their roster's so big. I mean, I was talking to a friend. I don't mean to babble and overtalk you guys.
No,
You're
man.
good. Yeah.
Oh no.
I was talking to my buddy, and like during COVID, we were talking about how watching the fights is so cool. And he said something. He's like, dude, everybody was sleeping on COVID. The NFL was sleeping, the NBA was sleeping, and during COVID, Dana just walked off with Saturday Night. The UFC
Yeah.
just took over. He walked off with it, and I actually sent that text to Dana, and Dana was like all the laughy faces. You know what I mean? Because it's
Yeah,
true.
it
The
is.
UFC straight up stole Saturday night, which pretty much used to be family night.
For
Because now
sure.
in my house, family night is Friday night.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's crazy.
Yeah, we're adjusting like St. Patty's Day stuff, or just adjusting our whole schedules just to fit in the London. Like, that's how me and him, we're like, all right, well, we can do this, but we got to do it at this time because this happens at
Yeah,
this time on Saturday, or this
we're gonna go
happens at this
out.
time.
Yeah, we plan on going out tonight, but yeah, we got to watch UFC London first. We're not.
Yeah, but UFC London starts like at 1 o'clock on the East Coast. So it'll
Yeah,
it'll be
Yeah.
done by 7. So you guys will have
Oh yeah,
plenty of time to
it's
go out.
perfect.
for
It's
sure.
perfect.
You guys will be
That's
pregame. You'll be pre-gaming right during the UFC. You might not even make it out.
That's right.
that's true.
That's
That's
right.
true.
Who do you
That's
have?
true.
Who do you have in the main event? You got Kamaru Usman or Leon Edwards?
You know, I had Kamaru Usman in the first one. And he dominated the fight. I mean, I don't want to take anything away from Leon Edwards. He got lucky. I mean, that was a straight Doug Flutie Hail Mary pass. I don't remember. You remember the Cal Berkeley football game where they were lateraling it and they scored the touchdown and won?
With the
I mean,
band.
that was a gift from God. You know what I mean? Literally. I mean, on paper, I believe the fight totally favors Kamaru Usman. And if you go back and watch the end of the between the 4th and 5th round, I think his coach jinxed him. His coach was saying stuff. He was like, make sure that you don't make a mistake. Make sure you don't make a mistake. And I was like, literally in my head, I was like, shit, something might happen here. And boom, you know what I mean? And you could see it. You could see he was doing his little thing that he was doing, and he just timed it and launched the kick. It was, I mean, I said it was a gift from God, but it definitely had something to do with his skill as a fighter. But those things definitely, they met up. God was shining on him that day, and his skill. It's one of the greatest finishes in MMA. Honestly, it's one of the greatest comebacks ever.
For sure.
And the post interview was great too. Like that was that was like what he was saying, and just how like the bang headshot did. Like it was all. That's like those are one of those moments where like this is why the UFC is so great compared to like other sports at times. Like because of that stuff. Like him saying he's from the trenches and building it up, and he got the head kick. Like that's why I love to see things like that at the end of the day.
Yeah. That's one of the reasons why combat sports is so popular, man, because anything can happen at any time. On paper, it doesn't matter. And I tell people this, they ask about fighting. The reason, because I was a team sport player. I played basketball my whole life, basketball, football, team sports, right? And ultimately fighting is an individual sport. So it's you and another guy. That's 50-50. 50-50 is the best odds you'll ever get in life, because you're not born with the 50-50 shot at being a millionaire, right? That's why they call them the 1%ers, right? The rich people, they're called the 1%ers. So I said it's 1% to 99% chance that you have. And in fighting, it's 50-50. You don't get better odds than that, just you and another man. And so anything can happen at any time. Even when on paper it's stacked against you, David can beat Goliath. It's crazy.
For sure. And you were the first Strikeforce light heavyweight champ. Is that correct?
I was, and I'm the only man to ever defend the light heavyweight
Yeah,
title.
I saw that.
So I am the only true Strikeforce champion, the only true Strikeforce light
That's
heavyweight
awesome.
champion.
That's cool, man.
Yeah, I have 2 of those belts somewhere in my house gathering dust. My wife won't let me. She won't let me. I want to put them up on the shelves, but
Heck yeah.
she always stacks the shelves with stuff, so there's nowhere for me to put my belts.
Yeah, you got to get that thing in like a trophy case or something.
Yes, I do. But again, then the walls are all packed with stuff too, so there's no room for that trophy case. It's all good though. It's all about the memories. I might put them up at the gym, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, you should. That'd be cool.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Eventually we want to make this podcast like an in-person thing. So you never know, man. Down the line, maybe we go visit your gym or something.
Oh, that would be awesome, man. Yeah. Let me know if the budget's not there. I can always put you up. We have plenty of space at the house. You guys just have to share it. You just have to share a bed like all of its fighters had to do in the old days.
That's fine. Hey, we're still at the age where that doesn't really matter. We got through college and stuff like that, so it's
2023. It should never matter, right? It should never matter.
I agree.
David, anything else you want to add?
No, I guess going back to Tough One, was that the toughest cut you ever had with them locking you in the sauna and dragging you out? And man, that was brutal. I guess that's the stuff you don't see these days on Tough Too, like some of those cuts. Maybe they didn't have cuts.
No, it's not true, and it's kind of like the Strikeforce thing. There have been a lot of guys that have had weight cutting issues on Tough, I'm the only guy to ever make the weight. Any other, if you watch any of the seasons, every guy that had trouble making the weight and came within a few pounds, they didn't make the weight. It's a little bit different. A lot of people don't know that. Like, I kind of got on Tough by luck. I had walked away from the sport. So I didn't even come back to training. I had walked away from the sport. Javier, the owner and head coach of AKA, and I'd had a falling out. I was running the jiu-jitsu program there. We had a falling out. I basically got kicked out of the gym and just basically walked away from the sport. So I didn't train for almost a year. I mean, I trained a little bit of jiu-jitsu, like once a month, but I wasn't doing regular training. And I was watching the fights, and guys like Josh Thompson and Paul Buentello and Mike Kyle, they were coming up in the UFC. And in the gym, I was like more than hanging with these guys. And I was like, man, guys are making it. I think I can do this. I can make another run. And so I called Crazy Bob, and he kind of smoothed things over with me and Javier to come back to the gym. So when I came back on a Tuesday, and everybody was talking about this show. And I had done nothing because, like I said, I was watching fights, but I wasn't in the know, and everybody was talking about The Ultimate Fighter. And I asked Bob, I'm like, hey, man, can I do this thing? And he told me it was past the deadline. He couldn't send in a tape. And I said, well, then give me a tape and I'll send it in myself. And so he was like, oh, okay, all right, I'll send it in. And so he sent it in. And there's been a couple shows on Spike where they talked about the process of the casting and all that. And first they were trying to make it real world. And Dana was like, no, you need real fighters. Then they started casting real fighters. And going through that process, a lot of guys got eliminated. Guys, they didn't pass the background check for criminal or domestic, a bunch of different reasons, right? A lot of guys didn't pass the steroid test. A lot of guys didn't pass the drug test. I actually failed my first test. I tested for weed, you know what I mean? Because when the guy called me and asked me if I was interested, I was literally sitting on the couch blazing a fat one. You know what I mean? So he's like, do you have any problems? Oh, no. Because I thought I was going to drink one of those drinks, those special drinks, and beat the test. Anyways, I pissed for that, but they still gave me another shot and asked me, like, are you a habitual user? And I said, no, man, I just was at a party and I must have got some contact high. And so I came back and I pissed clean, right? And so that's how I kind of got on the show. But like I said, I hadn't been training for almost a year. So I came back on a Tuesday and I trained, and that's our grappling day. I trained on Tuesday, and I was so sore from just coming in and going at that level that I wasn't able to train till the next Monday. And that was a sparring day. So we did sparring day, and it was on Tuesday that I got that initial call, and they flew me to Vegas, and I pissed hot. And then I went home, and the guy told me that I pissed hot like on Friday or the next Monday. And it was like the next Tuesday or Thursday, they flew me back out, and I pissed clean, and they told me I was cast. 2 weeks later, we started filming. I had like maybe 3 weeks to get ready for the show, and I had walked away from the sport. It wasn't like I was training. I was coming back. When I came back, I came back and I took a fight, and I was training to fight Stephan Bonner in like maybe December of that year. I'm not positive. In fact, me and his wife, we had a discussion about that at the memorial. But yeah, I had come back and I took a fight, and I was actually going to fight Stephan Bonner.
Oh, wow.
But I had months to get ready for that fight, right? I wasn't going to be fighting for 3 months, and then all of a sudden, here we are on the show 2 weeks later. And the reason that I went on the show was because we weren't supposed to fight. It actually in the contract is like this thick. It states in the contract that we're not fighting. That we're going to go through all those challenges, and the winners of whoever's left at the end will fight in the finale, right? But because we were dominating all of the challenges, they butted their heads together and came up with that we were going to fight. And that's what led to that whole thing where myself and Loden Kincaid, we organized this whiteout where no one would talk because they weren't going to pay us to fight. And that's what led up. Nobody was talking, and that's what led up to Dana having that "Do you want to be a effing fighter?" speech. My daughter's right here now, so I'm not.
Sounds good.
I'm
I
like
popped
easy
up the
beach.
other day. That video
Yeah.
popped up the other day. Funny enough, I saw that again. It pops up every now and then when the fighter pay stuff gets up. They,
Yeah.
you know how the internet's crazy. You say something and then you see a video come up about it.
This is another thing that people don't realize from Tough is that we all wanted to fight. We just didn't want to fight for free. And Dana during the speech
Right.
was trying to say, you're fighting for $100,000. And I'm like, no, Dana, you're giving us a chance to do 3 fights to make $100,000. That's like asking the winner of Survivor to go do 3 more Survivors and get their million. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? It's like,
Yeah.
that's not the same thing.
Right.
So we all agreed and we would fight. And luckily it was me, Diego Sanchez, and myself that fought first, and we got those finishes. And we got those finishes and nothing was said of it at the time. But after that, because Diego and I got those finishes, that's when Dana said, okay, if you guys finish fights, you're going to get $5,000. Right. And so everybody started trying to finish fights. And that's where performance bonuses came from. It was from season, from Tough One and them giving us 5,000 to finish the fight. That's where the fight of the night, the knockout of the night, the submission of the night, or what's now known as the performance bonuses. That's where those bonuses came from, because they saw the incentive that it gave the fighters. So that's another way that the ultimate fighter, contributed to the sport. So another little feather in all of our cast members' cap,
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Do you got anything else to add, Bobby?
If you guys can put it out there, follow me on Instagram at the Real B South. Follow my new gym at AKA San Antonio. AKA San Antonio is open for enrollment and a limited class schedule while we're building out the gym. So come check us out. Come try a couple classes for free if you like the vibe. We'll sign you up.
Cool, man.
Yeah, just give me a shout out. Let me pub up the gym, and appreciate you guys giving me the opportunity to be on your show.
Oh, of course. Yeah, we'll clip some things from this before we we'll post it on a set Friday, but we'll clip it and promote it and tag you in it. And if you want to collaborate and share it too, and we'll kind of help you out both ways. Like, we'll promote it, and if you want to promote it too, that works.
Sounds good.
And we'll probably get it up the 31st. Next week we got to promote Hector Lumbar's video. And then the week after, we'll promote you all week. So every day.
No rush. Just let me know when you guys are gonna do it and send me the stuff, and I'll do my. Actually, we'll have to ask some of my guys, because, like I said, like collaboration stuff, I don't understand how that all works. Do I just post it on my thing and tag your guys's IG?
I'll ask to collaborate you, and I think all you gotta do is just press yes or no on it.
Okay.
It should be in your direct messages or something. Is that right?
You can ask us. Yeah, I mean, you can audio message us or something if you're. We can try to help you from afar best we can.
Okay. I mean, where are you guys located?
North Carolina.
Yeah, North Carolina.
Nice.
Right near Charlotte, like 20-30 minutes out of Charlotte, if you know or familiar with Charlotte.
Not really. I've been to Raleigh, Durham. We were lucky
okay.
enough. There's that company, Oak Grove. They have like these military hookups, and so they brought me and Josh Thompson out, and we got to do this USASOC like special picnic, and we got to jump from the airplanes with the Golden Knights.
Okay,
pretty cool.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was badass, man. I still got that on video. Me almost pooping my pants as we jumped out at like 13,000 feet. I never wanted to parachute. I wouldn't have done it if I wasn't given that opportunity. So, yeah, it's crazy. It's scary.
Yeah, we're about 2.5 hours from Raleigh, so we're not too far from Raleigh. Yep.
Cool, guys. Well, hit me up. Let me know, and I'll do my part.
Sounds good, man. Thank you so much again for coming on.
Thank you, guys. You have a good one, sir.
Appreciate it, Bobby.
Yeah, no problem.